There's a specific kind of person who either survives toxic relationships or is about to, and they don't even realize they're already developing something that makes them untouchable. The psychology behind this, what actually happens inside your brain when you're dealing with someone toxic, reveals why some people break free and others don't. And if you're watching this, there's a reason you're here. See, here's what's wild. We've spent decades studying trauma, PTSD, anxiety, depression, all the ways people break. But only recently have researchers started asking a different question. What about the people who don't just survive, but somehow become more than they were before? There's a term for this: post-traumatic growth. And it's not what you think. First, let's get real about what toxic relationships actually do to your brain, because this isn't just a hurt your feelings. When you're in a toxic relationship, whether it's romantic, family, or friendship, your nervous system is essentially living in a war zone. Studies show that chronic stress from manipulation or emotional abuse spikes cortisol, your stress hormone, to levels that mirror actual combat situations. Your brain doesn't know the difference between a threat and a person who's gaslighting you. The effects: anxiety, depression, insomnia, your concentration fractures. Some people develop symptoms that look identical to PTSD. And here's the key part: these aren't character flaws. They're survival reactions. Your brain is literally trying to keep you alive. Research from Springer's work on toxic relationships found that victims experience everything from emotional distress to physical health issues, headaches, fatigue, a weakened immune system. Your body is screaming at you in the only language it knows. But here's where it gets interesting, because what happens after you leave, that's where the psychology gets absolutely fascinating. Here's what researchers like Tedeschi discover that changes everything. Roughly half to 23 of people who go through trauma don't just recover, they actually transform into something different, something more. And this isn't about bouncing back. That's resilience, getting back to who you were before. What we're talking about is different. This is when someone breaks you down so completely that your entire worldview shatters. And when you're sitting in those pieces trying to figure out who you even are anymore, that's when something unexpected can happen. You get to rebuild from scratch. And sometimes, not always, but sometimes what you create is actually stronger than what they broke. Here's the paradox that might actually give you hope if you're feeling shattered right now. The people who transform the most are often the ones who got hit the hardest, the ones who couldn't just shake it off, the ones who had every belief about love, trust, and safety completely dismantled. If you're someone who barely felt a scratch, you probably won't change much, because real growth, the kind that rewires who you are, requires being broken first. And if that's where you are right now, sitting in the wreckage, you're actually in the most powerful position you've ever been in. But wait, before you think this is some toxic positivity, everything happens for a reason nonsense, let me stop you right there. Post-traumatic growth doesn't erase the pain. Let me say that louder. For everyone in the back, growth and suffering coexist. They're not mutually exclusive. You can simultaneously carry trauma and experience profound transformation. Some survivors develop PTSD and post-traumatic growth at the same time. Your brain is holding two truths: this destroyed me and this changed me in ways that matter. The research identifies 5 areas where growth shows up. 1. You appreciate life differently. Small things hit different when you survive someone trying to dim your light. 2. Your relationships transform. You forge deeper connections with people who actually see you you become allergic to surface level anything. 3. You discover inner strength you didn't know existed. There's this bone deep knowing. If I survive that, I can survive anything. 4. New possibilities emerge. Doors you never noticed before suddenly swing open because your perspective shifted. 5. Your belief system evolves. Your values clarify. What matters becomes crystalline. But here's the part that makes this deeply human. Not everyone experiences this. And that's okay. There's no moral hierarchy here. Some people heal by simply returning to stability. Some people remain broken in ways that matter. The journey is not linear and it's not guaranteed. And if you're sitting here thinking, but I don't feel transformed, I still have panic attacks, I still flinch when someone raises their voice. Yeah, that's the point. The survivors who make it out, they all share something that has nothing to do with being strong in the way we typically define it. They get exhausted with being treated poorly, not in a dramatic way, in a bone-deep cellular way. There's this moment, and if you've been there, you know exactly what I'm talking about, where something inside you just clicks. The cost becomes undeniable. They establish boundaries not because they read it in a self-help book, but because their nervous system literally demands it. Boundaries become healthcare, not self-improvement. They seek support. And here's what the research shows. Therapy, support groups, even just one solid friend who validates your reality. These aren't luxuries. They're the difference between staying stuck in trauma and moving towards growth. Recent studies on coping with toxic relationships found that emerging adults who survive these dynamics develop specific strategies, emotion, regulation, boundary setting, and what researchers call deliberate rumination, actively processing what happened rather than letting it passively haunt you. That last part is critical. Intrusive rumination, where trauma thoughts invade your mind, keeps you stuck. But deliberate rumination, consciously working through what happened, can actually facilitate growth. So, here's what I need you to understand about the psychology of surviving toxic people. You're not broken for having been affected. Your anxiety, your trust issues, your hypervigilance, these are evidence that your brain did exactly what it was supposed to do. It protected you. And if you started noticing changes, that you're choosier who gets your time, that you can spot red flags at 50 paces, that you value peace more than excitement, that's not you being damaged. That's wisdom your nervous system paid for. The research is clear. Toxic relationships leave marks, but those marks don't define the full story. For many survivors, those marks become maps. They show you where you've been and, more importantly, where you refuse to go again. Here's what gets me about this research on post-traumatic growth. It's not about glorifying suffering. It's about acknowledging that humans are astonishingly adaptive. We're meaning-making machines. And sometimes when everything falls apart, we find ways to build something that actually fits who we really are. Not everyone gets there. The timeline is different for everyone. And you don't owe anyone a growth narrative from your trauma. But if you survived a toxic person and you're still here, still trying, still rebuilding your sense of self one boundary at a time, that's not just survival. That's transformation in real time. Your brain is literally rewiring itself. Your perspective is shifting. You're becoming someone who knows the difference between connection and control, between love and manipulation. The psychology of surviving toxic people isn't about being unbreakable. It's about discovering that when you break, you get to choose how you put yourself back together. And sometimes those repaired places become the strongest parts of who you are. That's not a fairy tale. That's neuroscience. And it's happening inside you right now. If this hit home for you, please subscribe. And if you want to support these deep dives, hit that join button to become a channel member